Okay, we are live. Here we go. Boom, baby. December 5th, 2022, 9:20 a.m. Here we go. We are live. It's time. We're here. I hope everyone had a great weekend. I had a pretty decent weekend. Got some things off my chest, let's say, this weekend. And so overall, pretty good weekend. We are here. We are back. First official week of December. Lots to get into. This is the last month of 2022. This is the last month of 2022. Let me just put this in my Discord. Let everyone know that I'm live. And yeah, here we go. Live morning open. Here we go. We also tweet this, let people know that I am live, and then we will begin. Mehdi, Philip, Geis, Richard, Ahad, Alvarado, Captain Chuck, Amit, Ishan. Hello. Thank you all for being here again on a market open, live market open. Got a bunch of news to get into. Different things are happening right now. S&P is down a little bit. Bitcoin is rallying. Overall, markets are very interesting. Monday already. Yes, it is. It is Monday already. Joel, what's up? Zcan, hi. Ronald, hello. Showcat, good morning. All right, we are here. It is time to get into the morning. Schifrin, what up? Eric, what up? Lots of different things that are going on right now. So let me first pull up this article. This is, I think, the biggest news. Well, there was a lot of news that happened over the weekend, especially regarding SBF, Twitter, Elon, lots of different things. There was an article this morning that said Tesla was cutting Shanghai production due to smaller demand. Apparently, that turned out to be fake. And it was read by Bloomberg. So Bloomberg, you kind of want to trust. Bloomberg is like the most official news source. It's not. Bloomberg is less like CNBC in that it's not as opinionated. It's more like the Bloomberg terminal, right? The reason people pay for that is because it's like news that's direct and informative. But apparently it was false. So we have different news around Apple making plans to move production out of China. This is something that I think Americans have wanted to see for a long time. Essentially because, China is like not the best place to be doing business. Turmoil at a place called iPhone City helped propel Apple's shift at the giant city within a city in China. I'm not going to even pretend to know how I pronounce that name. As many as 300,000 workers work at a factory run by Foxconn to make iPhones and other Apple products. At one point, it alone made about 85% of the Pro lineup of iPhones, according to a market research firm. The factory was convulsed in late November by violent protests and videos posted online. Workers upset about wages and COVID-19 restrictions could be seen throwing items and shouting, "Stand up for your rights." The location of one of the videos was terrified by the news agency and video verification service Storyful. So when Apple tries to have a moral stance around how companies should act, it's important to remember that the workers that they have in China making these devices that we use on a daily basis is not in the most ethical of situations. So Apple's moving to India. Apple is moving to India. Chris says moving out of China is fine. India, not so sure that's a good idea. Yeah, it's interesting. I think India obviously has about 1.4 billion people. There's a lot of people that are looking for work. I mean, when I go to India, you could see many people that could easily be placed in a factory and at least have a structure to then set up a foundation for their life, right? And it's better than a lot of other jobs they would be forced to do in the Indian economy. So, I mean, it's at least a good thing from that perspective, but it might have some of the same problems as China. I think the government would be a little bit more freer in India and not as dictatorial, so that would be a good thing. But ultimately, we would have to see how it turns out. Crackling, I did some stuff over the weekend to try to resolve it, so it's getting closer to being resolved. I worked on the CPU stuff. I can't say it's fully resolved, but I watched a bunch of YouTube videos trying to fix it, so I think I'm getting closer. I'm getting closer to a solution, so we'll see how it happens. Here we go. Webull. Let's get into what's going on into the market. iPhone should be made on Mars. That would be interesting. In limited amounts, India is fine. I would have moved to Vietnam. Vietnam is interesting. Vietnam is an interesting choice. Apple, here we go. 147.81 Apple. So it's down a little bit in the pre-market. 147.65. Nothing too much. We have this Chris thing that's on my Webull now. SOXS. This is a triple leverage short on semiconductors. So if semiconductors go down, this bad boy goes up. So it's up 1.82% right now, which means Nvidia and AMD are probably down. Let's see. Yeah, Nvidia is down, and that's why that thing is up. AMD. Nvidia is also down. Meta platforms. We did a podcast last night on Financial Junkies. I am becoming more and more ready to develop a high quality position in Meta. And the reason for that is primarily because I am getting more convinced that the 3 billion users they have is not going anywhere, and I'm okay with them trying to do the metaverse. Like from a pure technical perspective, I'm thinking Meta is a double in the next 2-3 years. It's kind of silly to imagine it's not. Just on like what really pushed me over the edge was WhatsApp monetization. End phase, of course, at 334, just rallying like always. WhatsApp has 2 billion DAUs, and they are finally just starting to introduce ads into WhatsApp, and the level that merchants are going to be able to use to be able to connect with consumers and things of that nature. I mean, there's a lot of different stuff going into WhatsApp monetization that I think is going to be powerful. So it's going to be pretty exciting to see that. So Meta is one of those things I'm getting into. Okay, let me do my big announcement real quick. It's not too big of an announcement. We have 4 minutes till the market opens. Ruckshit, he put it in the chat, so let me put it up there. Merch is officially live. I know a lot of people have been asking for it. It's here. So it's in the description. You guys can check it out. I know the morning crew has been asking for it. Merch is live. AmitIsLegit.com. That's what I named it. I was like, this is going to be a stupid name, but let's name it like that. I like the Audia merch a lot. I think we have some really, really dope designs on this bad boy. We worked with the designer, and it's pretty cool. Some pretty cool stuff. It's like a retro 90s microphone and mic stand walking together. And we have some really nice colorways on this bad boy. So if you support the startup, if you support the mission, the movement, it's pretty cool stuff. And then we have the traditional... we have some fun ones. We have a wake your ass up shirt. Boom. Wake your ass. It's pretty cool. We worked on some different designs. Me and my boy Tristan. The stock market is open. We've got these guys. So everything ends in 42.69. We're shipping from a high quality US supplier. Not trying to break the bank. Profit margins are $10 to $15 for me on some. Profit margins like $5. So I think it's relatively cheap. Everything ends in 420 or 69 because that's how we like to do it. And so, yeah, if you guys want to support the morning stream, here we go. Merch is officially live. Wanted to have fun with a bunch of this stuff. If you want to wear my face and you want to tell everyone to wake their ass up when you're wearing this hoodie, then boom, the merch is live and you guys can check it out. There's a lot of cool products on there, so I would recommend at least checking it out. And if you'd like something, you could do it. Can you sign my merch? I cannot sign your merch because this merch is being shipped from a factory in Vegas. At least it's not China, so it's going to be like good, high quality stuff. But I cannot sign your merch, unfortunately. I know you would like me to have your merch. If I ever become as big as Zuckerberg and I build a crazy big company, then maybe the merch being signed would matter a lot. But if not, it's OG merch from the early days of a startup trying to get off the ground. And so I think it's some cool stuff. I think it's some really cool designs. I think it's stuff that I actually would wear. I just ordered my hoodies a couple days ago, so hopefully we will get it there. Is there a hoodie with the Audio logo on it? Yes. So the hoodie with the Audio logo on it is just this one. This is a fresh one. Just the Audio white, green, and gray. And then there's another one right here. This is the one I like the best. This is the logo, and then on the back of it we have. This is not the hoodie though. It's a crew neck. So there it is. AmitIsLegit.com. It's ready. No thongs. Unfortunately, no thongs. I'll put it in the chat and I'll pin it so you guys can check it out. And yeah, there we go. All right. We've got a little bit until the market open, literally about a minute. It's going to be interesting to see where things go. Now, Michael Burry tweeted over the weekend. He said, I am not short. A couple of weeks ago, he tweeted, you have no idea how short I am. And so obviously he was referring to the fact that he's actually not short, even though people think he is short. Some people are saying this means the bottom is in. You know, Michael Burry, he's been wrong for 10, 12 years, been right for some years. I mean, can you really trust him? You don't know. But it is interesting to think that if inflation goes down and you've got a key prominent figure saying that he is actually not short, there may be a world in which, who knows, maybe we're getting actually into a bottom and maybe we're finally, or getting out of the bottom, right? Maybe we're finally capitulating. Maybe we're finally getting to a next level. I don't know. We are going to see, and it'll ultimately determine everything, but we're going to see how that happens. S&P right now also is down. Yeah, it's down 403. So resistance is at 408. It hasn't broken resistance yet. So we're going to see how that turns out. All right, boom. December 5th, 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Here we go. First official week of December. For those that love the cowbell, it is time to open the market. The market is now open. Wake your ass up. The stock market is open. Another day in December, and more importantly, another day to be alive. NVIDIA 166 down 1.10%. AMD down 0.28%. S&P down 0.7% at 404. Highs of 408 last week. Apple up 147 right now, down up 0.2, up 0.0%. Meta down 0.93% at 122. Shopify. I'm using Shopify for amitislegit.com, so getting a little bit more bullish on just understanding the platform. I haven't used the platform in a couple of years, but I did use it found 5 years ago and just to like do different types of e-commerce. And so I was reminded how easy the platform is to use at the end of the day. It's a really, really nice platform. 43.56 right now, market cap of 54 billion. I think they did a rev of like 2 billion last quarter. I have to check it out again. I haven't gone deep into their numbers. Or it might have been 2 billion for the year. So I have to look back into their numbers, but I knew that this bad boy was a bit like Kathy was buying it at 176, right? And so it was a bit overvalued for a while. Pre-split, it was like $1,700 or something. So I want to go deeper into Shopify's numbers before I decide to establish a position in it. But using the platform, it reminds me how friendly it is to just use the platform. And Amazon fees suck. If Shopify can deliver a Prime-like service, which they bought a Delivery, which is a product that actually does like Amazon Prime type services, then it might end up being a pretty decent product. Okay, let's go to some of the other ones. We have SoFi at 470, Palantir 769. There was a new video, Alex Karp talking at the Reagan Defense. You know, the crazy thing is, I'm not even gonna lie right now. I had a dream about Alex Karp. This dream was so crazy. Palantir was working on a competitor to Facebook's metaverse in my dream. That it was a weird dream, bro. It's like they were making a headset and all this stuff. Like it was weird. I'm not even lying. Like this is the dream I had last night. And I remember I asked Karp a question. I was like, didn't you guys say you don't want to work on like fake stuff like the metaverse and you want to work on real problems? And he had no answer. He couldn't respond to my question. It was great, bro. I'm not even lying. It was a crazy dream. I was like, why are you guys working on a metaverse? Like, why don't you guys want to work on like Ukraine and stuff like that? I don't know why I had that dream, but it was an interesting dream. Lyft at 1146, Neo at 1375, Ginkgo Bioworks DNA 193, Spotify, where is it at 80? Look, Spotify looks like a company right now that is undervalued on technicals. On the actual long term of the business, I'm just not bullish. There was another article that came out the other day that from a really well-respected tech reporter. I think his name is Ben Stratchery. He writes the Stratchery Report, and he was more skeptical than ever on Spotify's exclusive podcasting strategy, which I understand. I think Spotify could hit $100, $110. Remember, they DPO'd at 165 just because the macro, when it gets better, all stocks will come up. But long term, it's the same problem as Netflix to me. And Netflix at least has better content. You know, Spotify in the audio space, the content is just not worth as much as Netflix that captures your eyes from a pure advertising perspective. ARK Innovation at 37.98, which is why ARK also liquidated another 50,000 shares of Spotify last week. So, I mean, you know, they liquidated a really heavy position in Spotify. It was over a couple $100 million. Roku at 61.27. Google at 168. We have to talk about potentially some disruption to Google in the search space based on some products that were released, but we'll talk about that. Alibaba at 90, Microsoft 252, Datadog 74, Square 66, Walmart 152. Bitcoin, for some reason, has been up. Bitcoin is rallying 17,000, doing a nice rally up from the 16,000 mark. So not bad. I see Palantir making a better metaverse because you're thinking of Meta. Don't get sucked. That's probably the reason why I thought of this dream. Like like on the podcast last night, the Financial Junkies podcast, we were talking. We had a debate about Meta, and then I guess I fell asleep thinking about Palantir, and then Palantir and Meta. But it was a really weird dream. It was a very, very interesting dream. Amit, can you get audio on the Oculus platform? Basically, play audio while playing VR. That would be interesting. I don't know how open Oculus is to new developers, but something we could definitely look into. It's definitely possible. That would be actually really cool if we could do that. Should have asked them to invest in audience. What a waste of question. That's crazy. I had a similar dream after watching your show last night, but I can't remember the details. That's crazy, right? How you think about something and then it shows up in your dream. Like, I'm telling you how explicit this dream was. They were at an event and I was getting to talk to Carp one-on-one. It wasn't like I was in the audience and he was on stage. Like, I was getting to talk to him one-on-one. And I was like, bro, why do you care about the metaverse? If you said, like, remember he had that quote? He was like, the metaverse is like a fake place and we're not trying to run to the metaverse. We're trying to focus on real problems. And I asked him that question. It was one of those questions where it's like gotcha. It's like you can't respond to it. And I didn't want to be a dick, but I was like, Carp, why do you care about this? Why are you developing this headset? And he just didn't have a response. And then I woke up and I was like, what just happened? I was like, what is going on? Tesla down 3%. Tesla's still recovering up from 166 at its 52-week low, so it's not down to that bad of a level. But it's there. CRM has been hit a pretty bad over the past couple of months. The main reason for it is because the CEO apparently left, or the co-CEO left the other day. Mark Benioff and Brett Taylor. Mark Benioff is there. He's the original founder and CEO. Brett Taylor decided to step down. Don't really know why, but I guess he's had a hell of a year and he's done and he's stepping down. So CRM getting hit a little bit. Coinbase at $48. Again, one of the reasons to be bullish on Coinbase is if they can survive this crypto winter as one of the only regulated exchange, they're probably going to capture a lot of the market. If Gemini collapses, BlockFi's collapse, FTX collapse. Like, FTX was a big player, man. They were taking a lot of trading volume and they've collapsed, right? Voyager collapsed. So a lot of that trading has to go somewhere. And, you know, if it's going to go into Robinhood and Coinbase, then that might be the thing. Listen to Carlos on Meta, not Vitaly. I don't think Carlos has an argument on Meta. I don't think he has an argument. His argument was like, what about Twitter? It's like, what about Twitter? Like, did anyone really get an argument from Carlos in that pod yesterday? Carlos was just like, oh, you've got Twitter. It's like, Twitter is not taking anything from Facebook. It's not happening. The majority of people on the planet do not know how to tweet because tweeting is hard, but anyone can post a photo of their family or repost a meme. Like, I really think Meta is at a level where it's undervalued and people are underplaying it. And besides the metaverse, it's becoming obvious to me. Like, it's becoming especially with WhatsApp monetization. I also don't think I don't think it's a WhatsApp situation because people aren't not using the platform is my point. Like, people are using it, whether it's Instagram, WhatsApp, or Facebook, people are using this product. And so if we just go from a pure business perspective, if you take the morality out of it, it's just like, are people using it? Yes or no? It's like, yes. It's like, okay. Can they monetize people using it? Yes. All right. There you go. It is a little tricky because PE ratios and interest rates and like, how do you measure the stock? I get all that. But Meta to 200, Meta to 250, it seems a lot more possible than not. Haven't initiated the position yet, though, so we'll let you guys know when I do. Netflix at 322. Netflix rallying a bit. It was just under 320. It was like hold on, let's go to the... Yeah, it was at 162 back in May. So, wow, Netflix has doubled. Wow. So I think Bill Ackman sold around 220-ish. Bill Ackman sold like right here-ish in April. It bottomed at 162, and now it's doubled. So if he had just kept, I think his average was in the 320s. I might be wrong on this, but if Bill Ackman had just held on, I don't know where else he put that capital, so I don't know what the opportunity cost would have been. But Netflix has doubled. Netflix has doubled. The market is going to run like crazy this week. Options expiration at 420 and 8380. So going to be a massive volatility for Max Payne, like a big run and settle flat at the end of the week. Interesting. We will see. I mean, that's a good point around options. I guess it's just a question of how it's going to happen. I mean, also there's potentially that Santa Claus rally that could come in. WhatsApp will be big in India. I mean, WhatsApp is already huge in India, bro. Like, WhatsApp, like if you're Indian, you don't use iMessage. Even if you have an iPhone, you use WhatsApp. My Meta average is $106. That's not bad. That's not bad right now, Meta. Chris is reaching with his solar bear case. When Chris turns into a bear, he turns into an actual bear. Bear case on Meta is that Reels have been less monetizable than feeds this far, and eyes are going from feeds to Reels. Yeah, well, Reels has done. Reels has 50% of the viewing time of TikTok. And that's not all Facebook. That's just Reels, which is really interesting, man. Like that means people are using the product. I'm using the product a lot more, and they've done about $1 billion TTM in revenue on Reels. So if they can just continue to increase that, they've got a big shot to like expand that out into the market. Okay, let's get into some of the talking heads, see what they're talking about, and go from there. Again, everybody, merch is officially launched. AmitIsLegit.com. If you guys want to support the stream, A lot of fun merch on there, so please check it out. We put it together last week, and now it's officially there. So check it out. All right, let's look at this. The Fed is not going to pivot anytime soon. Let's hear what they have to say on this. One sec. Okay, here we go.
Good morning. We were talking, I don't know if you heard us a little bit earlier about the Friday, about what happened on Friday. So is the market right? Is Jay Powell right? Who's listening to whom?
Well, I thought Friday's action was really interesting, as you guys were talking about, right? That we rallied after being down a couple hundred points on the Dow, and it actually ended up green. I thought rates going down was very interesting as well. And I think what it's telling us is that, yeah, maybe Powell is wrong at this moment in time, because if you look at the data from last week, it was actually pretty bad, Andrew, right? I mean, housing we know has rolled over, but JOLTS came in weaker than expected. Challenger Gray data was actually on layoffs was much worse than expected. And then if you look at the ISM, I thought that was the real tell. New orders are in contraction mode and have been for 5 out of the last 6 months. And prices paid index is telling you that inflation is coming down pretty darn rapidly. So I think that the Fed is not going to pivot anytime soon, but I think maybe higher for longer, but not so many more aggressive hikes coming down the pipeline.
But go back to the other issue, which is, do you think if the market's not listening to Powell, will Powell start to listen to the market?
No, I don't think so. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the number on Friday, the real call out is the average hourly earnings, right? And if you look at September, October, and the revisions that were made in those months, plus the hot November number, you're at a 6% annualized rate, Andrew, for wages. And we know that the Fed is focused on wages. Even the core PCE at 5%. That's way higher than the 2% that they're looking for. So I don't think they're going to look at the markets. They're just going to look at the data, and we'll have to see how in the next couple of months what that looks like. But unfortunately, it's going to be higher for longer. So that's why rates have to be higher for longer.
Anything new you love or anything new you hate in terms of equities?
I'm excited about this week, GE's Healthcare Day. We know that the company is going to spin off in January. They're into 3 different divisions, so I'm very excited about that. I'm looking at Lowe's because I think this week they have an investor day as well. I want to hear about the housing market. I mean, their quarter was outstanding given what's going on in the housing market. So that's kind of interesting to me. Of course, we get Broadcom on Thursday afternoon, and we had Marvell last week talking about very disappointing data center details, and that's a big component for Broadcom. I like Broadcom. I own it. And then, of course, we have Costco, and they had a disappointing comp number last week. Let's talk about retail and the consumer. So I think it's going to be a fairly busy week, in addition to what you were talking about in terms of PPI and durable goods.
Okay. That's an interesting point that she makes as well. Let me pull up Webull again. The Fed has an interesting decision to make, right? Because the argument she was making there is that the Fed is not going to be able to pivot with inflation being the way that it is right now, particularly given the fact that 7.7 is still pretty high, right? Like, I don't know if we reach 6 by the end of this year. That means we have to get to at least 6.9, which would blow everyone's mind if we hit 6.9 on inflation. I mean, that would that would blow everyone's mind, just because 6.9. So for us to go down 6.9, we would have to move down 8 basis points. I don't think on December 13th we're moving down 8 basis points. Now, if we do, the market's going to rip. If we get to touch 6 on the inflation numbers, the market's going to rip. I think our best case scenario is something like 7.4, 7.3, and that would still be pretty substantial as well. So if we don't get it to that point, again, this whole Fed pivot thing, it's not going to happen. Now, the Fed pivot is defined as not lowering rates, but just stopping to raise rates. And so we're likely going to get another 75, potentially 50, but then after, if it is a 75, another 50, and then another 50, and then 25, which means it's still going to be pretty, heavy in terms of raising rates to nominal percentage rate hike of about 5.5 to 6. The question becomes, how slow can inflation go, or how fast can inflation come down for the Fed to be able to stop, which is the pivot, and that determines if stocks go to the moon. Like Tesla at 188 right now with the interest rates that we have. The interest rates are really affecting Twitter the most because Twitter has debt now, right? So the cost of borrowing that capital is a lot more expensive. So with a company like Twitter, they have to have massive price declines. Tesla does not have as much debt as Twitter does. So it's a different, orientation towards it. But as soon as the Fed stops, that's where companies like this start to go up. But when does the Fed stop? I mean, that's the $1 million question. We don't know if that's ever going to happen. Talking about spending without delving into what the spending is on is a bit empty, in my view. Many people are spending a lot on preparing for a perceived incoming disaster. That tells a specific story. That is true as well. I mean, when we talk about spending, we have to talk about where that spending is actually going. It was really interesting on Black Friday and Cyber Monday that there was over $20 billion spent, right? So that one could ask the question of like, what is that spending on? And a lot of that spending was just nonsense, right? It was just people buying dumb shit. And so that gives you a little bit, especially with the jobs report coming in a little bit more hot. It's like, okay, so we have more jobs than expected, which is technically bad for inflation because that means more money going to the system. And then people spending all that money on dumb shit, which means advertisers, like if $20 billion is spent on Black Friday from consumers, that means advertisers likely got a return on the ads they spent to get that traffic to their website or into their retail stores to be able to convert that traffic. Which means the advertising stocks like Google and Facebook probably did well over Black Friday. So it's interesting to see how that's going on. Amit, look up AUUD. Okay. AUUD. Audia Inc. Interesting. Maybe that's our ticker symbol when we go live. Is there audio? Is audio taken? We might apply for audio when we go live. That's what we're going for. AUUD. I love it. But Apple hitting up 150. Taiwan Semi still at 81. Buffett gave it some help. The Meet Kevin PPP or PP pricing power ETF is up 0.81%. So you got that going there. Tattooed Chef 146. It's bad. Wejo at 99 cents. I asked a question the other day on Twitter, which counter SPAC do you think has the most momentum? I think it's between Wejo, DCFC, which is Tritium, which I like a lot. I know their stock has been hit, but I really like the company. BBLN, which I think is doing a reverse split probably soon. And then you got Sarcos, which is an interesting one. It's one I've not looked into as much as some of the other ones. Wejo would be my bet to be the one that wins. Palantir SPAC investments are down 80% year to date. So the SPAC thing, we talked about it over the podcast last week. It likely was a bit of a failure, but if at least one of them goes to the moon, then it might pay back for the $220-something million they spent. So we will see. Opendoor, we talked about this last week. The CEO is now the president of the marketplace, and the CFO has turned into the CEO. So, Opendoor is going through some different restructuring as well, but we'll see. Fed cannot afford to pivot because of debt and government printing more money. This is also true. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. All right. Let's go into some other videos and see what's happening. Elon Musk hosted a space on Twitter this weekend. It had 1.1 million people join, which was absolutely insane. You got 1 million people join a space. He was talking about all the different updates you can do for Twitter. He also released something called the Twitter Files, and the Twitter Files were essentially these like documents exposing how in 2020 the Hunter Biden laptop story was censored by Twitter employees. So a lot of stuff happened on Twitter over the weekend. Let's take a look a little bit about talking more about. Actually, no, we're not going to go to that Twitter. We're going to go to a different one. But the conclusion here is that Twitter is much more engaging. Elon Musk is bringing a lot of traffic to the website, and there's a lot more people using Twitter. So at the end of the day, his pivot of trying to make Twitter into something that 1 billion people use is in the right direction. It's a question of if they're going to be able to monetize it. But the guy is making Twitter a place where you have to be every day. It's hard to not be on Twitter every day. Let's look a little bit about oil. OPEC keeping oil output unchanged along with EU sanctions. Let's see the effect this potentially has on oil stocks as well. Joel, I'm going to look at your tweet in a second. Oh, Lilium. I forgot to mention Lilium. Yeah. Lilium is another stock that is one of the interesting Palantir SPACs.
Talk OPEC. OPEC, nothing's happening this morning. I'm surprised. I guess it's sort of it was in the cards. OPEC countries agreeing to stick with their previously announced production cuts. Let's get to Brian Sullivan. If he doesn't go to Vienna, he goes to Brussels with the latest headlines. Brian.
Yeah, Joe. Okay, listen, there is a lot going on, and I thought your China discussion was really, really important because it kind of layers into today. All right, so let's get into everything that is happening. No, we are not in Vienna. OPEC meeting virtually yesterday, but OPEC really just kind of a smaller part of the overall story. So let's walk through what is happening in global energy markets today as we are in Brussels. Hello to our new friends from Poland, or as they called it, Coland. They were sort of joking about their own energy problems, having to go back to coal. All right, get to that. So you've got the OPEC meeting where they continue their production cuts, 2 million barrels a day. We know it's not the full number, obviously more like 900,000, but still they are not adding production. All at a time when the European Union sanctions on seaborne, meaning coming from a ship, Russian oil, go into effect today. There are still going to be some exemptions for maybe some pipeline fuel going into Germany. We don't know. All that, of course, probably still finally being hammered out here in the European Union behind us. You've got this $60 Brent crude price cap, which is also going into effect today, which is probably the level where Russia is selling oil anyway. So it's not going to do a lot, but it's politically expedient and it's enough to kind of maybe keep oil flowing. And what you guys just talked about, guys, all on those same days, today, one day, we have China, which has decided to sort of reopen its economy and thus likely use more fuel. Now, I'm no math expert, but there are 365 days in the year, so that's what he carried the one, 0.275% chance that China announces a reopening on the exact same day that the price cap and the sanctions all go into effect. Oh, and by the way, Alexander Novak, the energy minister from Russia, was just in China talking about energy. Maybe it's all coincidence, who knows? By the way, Russia guys vowing retaliation. The Russian ambassador to, you named it, Joe, Vienna, coming out over the weekend. I don't need to read the tweet. You can read it for yourself, basically saying, today, the European Union will get no more oil. So if you're not tracking it, Europe has said, we're not going to use any more Russian oil. Russia says, fine, we're not giving you any more Russian oil. The only question now that needs to be answered is, where does that 1 to 1.5 million barrels, where does it come from? The U.S. can't do it. A couple 100,000 barrels, maybe. Kazakhstan, who knows? Norway. We're in day one of the next leg of Europe's energy woes, guys.
That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. Like, this is why, and again, we need a renewable future so we don't have these issues, but we also, it's hard. Like, I was looking at a study that until 2050, we're not going to be able to begin to phase out of oil and gas. Like, it's going to be around for a long time. It's not something you can just get out of, which is why companies like Tesla are so important, because they're starting to normalize and naturalize these whole ideas of, like, we can do things without oil and gas. But if Tesla's just one company, and if Tesla failed, like, none of the companies would have adjusted. So you need a lot of companies to be able to really build in the infrastructure for us to get off of oil and gas. And until then, Europe's going to be in a tough position this winter, man. Because again, as he said, the United States, our strategic oil reserves can barely keep the price of oil down in our own country. It's not going to put enough oil into the system to stabilize prices and to stabilize supply and demand throughout the entire continent of Europe. So it's in a tough situation. Amit, I know you're not the biggest fan, but a lot of legislators getting pushed for cannabis. I am huge on cannabis legalization. I don't personally consume cannabis. But I think it's a great idea for cannabis to be legalized. It's a drug that I really don't think is that violent as we've made it seem. I don't have any cannabis stocks. The problem with cannabis stocks is that, like, the legalization news brings a run up for them. I was playing with them a bit in 2020, and then the momentum dies out. So, like, if I were to buy a cannabis stock, like, I think Kronos is a cannabis stock, if I remember. Might be wrong on this. It's been a while since I looked at them, but those stocks, like, they just need more momentum and they need actual revenues and stuff to, like, justify buying into them. It can't just be, oh, it's legalized, therefore, stocks going to the moon. So that's important, bro. Medicine, not drug. I agree, Mark. It's medicine. It's not a drug. I agree. Venezuela's opening back up. U.S. issuing permits. Next winter will be even more difficult for Europe. Yeah, it's not going to be good. That is absolutely not going to be good. But yeah, in the context of cannabis, I think it just takes, a little bit more momentum there. NASDAQ 11,398, Lyft at $11.37, DoorDash 54.32. DoorDash just let off a bunch of employees last week. So Snapchat is another thing that's becoming more interesting to me. I will give Snapchat another quarter. I want to see next quarter's earnings and see if they figured out some of the advertising issues. I think Snap is cheap, okay, at $10. Now, I think it's cheap. However, next quarter, they need to grow their DAUs and they need to grow their ad rev. If they can't figure out a more effective advertising model around those DAUs, I'm not going to touch the stock. It's not something like Meta by any sense of the imagination when it comes to advertising. Their Snap ads kind of suck, but from a technical perspective, they seem a bit low, right? Price of sales at 3. I know the market cap's a little bit frothy at 16 billion. At 80, it was obviously overvalued. At 20, it was pretty bad. At 7, that's when I think I should have started putting in a little more money because it was kind of stupid. Now, if everything goes to shit in 2023, Snapchat's also going to go to shit. But again, that's the problem with this idea of like 2023 being shit. So many stocks have already gone to shit. And yes, can they fall more? 100%. But, you're saying Google's going to go to $50, Meta's going to go to $30. Like, no, like that's like, there's some of these things that are just not happening. Disney already demolished this year, barely making a recovery because Bob Iger is back. Disney's going to go down to $40. Like, do we really think it's going down another 50%? It's just hard to imagine that. It's just hard. So we will see. Very true. If I was to suggest TCNNF, Curaleaf, just saying largest MSOs. Okay. I will add those to the watch list. Vitaly in the chat, Snap is junk. They may be cheap, but so is Meta. I agree. And I would pick Meta over Snap any day. I mean, I've used Snap and the advertising, it just sucks, man. It's just like on Facebook, I actually see ads and I like click on them and I like look at their content. Snapchat, it's very difficult to click on those ads. Meta was 89. Yeah, Meta's up 30% in 2 weeks. So Meta has had a nice little run up. Without SoFi, Fiverr Shop, and Tesla being this cheap, you don't need to look at crap like Snapchat. That's fair. Let's go to Fiverr, actually. I haven't looked at Fiverr in a bit. What's the ticker symbol? Fiverr. What's the ticker symbol for Fiverr? Oh, here it is. Here we go. FVRR. Fiverr, how much is Fiverr down year to date? It was at 163. No. It was at 2022. It was at 100. Oh, wow. It was at 36 in the lows. Then it ran back up to like 80. Now it's right back down to 33. It was at 26 just a couple of days ago. Yeah, I don't know much about Fiverr's business. The market cap's at 1.23 billion. I mean, I know what Fiverr is. I've used it before. I've not gone into the fundamentals or finances. And I need to do that because Fiverr, Upwork, these are all stocks that I think are interesting to look at. Cameron, shout out for you being here. But it's interesting to look at. Meta only up 37% below from Netflix doubled. Yeah, look, and Netflix doubling is probably because it was technically undervalued. I still don't believe in the Netflix growth story at all. I really think they're spending way too much on content, and the content's not that good. Same thing with Spotify. So that's one of those thesis things that, like, I can't buy the stock knowing that when I go to sleep at night, I remember Netflix is spending $17 billion a year on content, and most of that content is not good. Like, I can't go to sleep knowing that. Like, it's hard. I can go to sleep owning Google, knowing that 95% of the videos uploaded to YouTube are trash. But those 5% of videos that are good keep 2.3 billion people using the platform every month. Because that's the truth. 95% of videos uploaded to YouTube are garbage and irrelevant, and no one's watching them. But the 5%, the one Mr. Beast video that gets 50 million views in 5 days, that and that YouTube paid nothing to acquire outside of like hosting it, is worth way more than Netflix spending whatever billions of dollars to even get 10 million, much less 50 million views. It's just, I cannot sleep at night knowing that I'm invested in a company spending that much money on content. I can't do that. I cannot do that. So, Amit, watch Spotify buy your company after you do all the work. Well, that's the plan. That's the plan is to get a little big and then Spotify to be like, hey, do you want a couple 100 million? And be like, Spotify, I really do. I would love a couple 100 million. Now, I'm exaggerating. That's going to be really hard to do. But if we figure it out, your boy's not going to have to be selling merch to make a little bit of money, which, by the way, amitislegit.com just launched for anyone who wants the merch. Check it out. Nice Christmas colors on there. You can get some Christmas presents and shipping will be fast. Check it out. Hope you guys might like the merch. Okay. Last couple of things I want to look into. Grindr has collapsed as well. 6.51. It was up at like in the 30s last week. This is why you don't buy these SPACs because they end up collapsing. Amazon at 93. Is Amazon a buy? Put it in the chat. I do not think Amazon is a buy. If you go through their financials, AWS is the only thing keeping this company alive. It's the only thing. The retail business margins, they're losing money on it. Prime Video, this is another reason I wouldn't invest in Prime. Prime Video is not keeping up with Netflix. If you use Prime Video, there's some good stuff there, but it's not at the level of Netflix, even at the level of Paramount. It's a loss leader for Amazon to just get you to buy into the Prime subscription. AWS is where all the money's being made. $62 billion of revenue last year on AWS. The ads business is increasing on Amazon as well, which is nice, which is a lot more high margin. But at the end of the day, the retail business sucks. And so it's a bit harder. Bullet Train on Netflix was amazing with you on the spending though. Erwin, shout out to you being in the chat. Yeah, I think Netflix has some bangers. They have some, like the Spotify series. I watched like 3 episodes of that. Like they showed how Daniel like built Spotify. I thought that was great. I want to know how much did they spend for that, right? Like did they, because there was a lot of actors in there. There was like, did you spend 10, 20 million to make that 8-part series? And how much of that got new subscribers, right? Like Stranger Things is a different level. Stranger Things will bring some Squid Games, but like these random one-off type of series, like Too Hot to Handle, right? Like the reality, like is that really bringing in more subscribers? Is that really showing a lifetime value? I don't know. And so it's really hard for me to then get on the Netflix train knowing that. Karp will be on CNBC in a few minutes. Wait, how do we know that? Did Palantir tweet about that? Because I'll stream that if that's there. Let me go to Palantir's Twitter right now, guys. Is Karp actually showing up on CNBC? I feel like they would have announced that. They didn't. Interesting. David, how do you know? Did you see a tweet on it? How do you know? Or is it, or did you see it on CNBC if you're watching it on TV? Interesting. I didn't know Karp was going to be on CNBC. He's doing another press appearance. Interesting. I watched CNBC and they showed his face before commercial. Okay, cool. I probably won't be able to live stream it because I don't have CNBC live, but I will definitely react to it when he's on. They said he will be on. Interesting. Wow, they usually announce beforehand when Karp comes on CNBC. So I wonder what he's there to announce. Like, what is he going to talk about? Maybe their recent deals? Maybe? I don't know. Okay. But anyway, yeah, those are my thoughts. So Amazon to me is just, it's a hard buy going into recession. And that's another thing. That's a great point. Finkin79 going into a recession. Do you really want to touch Amazon out of all stocks? Like there's too many good stocks out there, as Crossroads says, to touch Amazon. If a recession hits and people don't want to start buying stuff. And again, if you look into the financials, the margins on the retail business suck. Like AWS prints money because it's AWS. I use AWS for my startup, right? Like AWS is awesome, but Amazon margins suck. They're not real. And having used Shopify now, I can tell you how much more friendly the experience is to actually sell stuff. Whereas I used to sell stuff on Amazon. It's not as friendly, man. They take so many fees. Like it's hard. So I would be a bit more bullish on some of the other stuff that exists out there. Yes, you do want to buy this and keep DCA. Yeah, I don't know, Vitaly. This is when you buy, not when the recession over. That's true. Well, I mean, that's a good point. Obviously, it's just a question of like long term is like again, I agree. You buy it when it's low. The question is what propels it to come back when the recession is gone, and is that AWS or is that the retail business? I think that's AWS, and so that's a little bit of a harder question. Are you to just bet on AWS blindly for the next 5 years over the retail business? Because I don't think it would be the retail business. Amazon's margin sucks. They're investing everything. I don't know if it's because they're investing. It's because like the customer, they make their product so cheap that when you buy it, there's no margins, and they have so much on Prime delivery, shipping, the logistics, all that stuff. I think all of that is like a loss leader for other parts of the business, but the margins are not profitable yet. Amit, he just released a new video on government. Palantir. Let's go. Okay, awesome. So I will be reacting to that once that comes out. Maybe he's on because somebody had to cancel. He's filling the gap of airtime. That may be true. That may be true as well. Okay, that's it for me, guys. I'm out. Thank you so much for being here. First market open of the new week in December 5th. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. I have a couple more videos coming out today. We'll talk about some different stuff that's going on. Merch is launched. Amitislegit.com. Definitely check it out. Would appreciate anyone copying any merch. It means the world to me. And that's pretty much it. Thank you, everybody. I will see you tomorrow on the market open. Bye-bye.